Emil Kadlec here with Football Diehards DFS Sunday show. Week 3 of the NFL season should be a fun one with all the injuries. We're here with Jason Brady and myself, Emil Kadlec. Brady, how are you today?
I'm doing very good. Really looking forward to this slate. I've never seen a slate where so many injuries happened last week. So with that said, we have so many plays that we have to talk about this week. The injuries have opened up so much. So really looking forward to the slate and hopefully making some money on this Sunday.
Fantastic. I agree. This is going to be fun to see what you've come up with. Well, you want to start with quarterbacks?
Yep, we're going to start with quarterbacks here. And you guys are going to notice that I'm going to touch on one of these games a ton, and that is the Dallas and Seattle game. And it's because it has a 55.5 point game total, which is the highest on the slate. And Russell Wilson is the first quarterback I do want to talk about in that game. He is 7,300. The Seahawks are going to be 4.5 point favorites. This game has shootout potential written all over it. 5 touchdowns last week for Russell Wilson, stackable with guys I really like this week in Lockett or Metcalf. And Dallas has given up the 12th most passing yards this year to guys like Matt Ryan and Jared Goff. I really expect Russell Wilson to have a very good day today with touchdown upside. He doesn't throw the ball as much as I'd like. He had only 28 passing attempts last week, but the efficiency is there. The efficiency is barely there. So I do think he can get into the end zone not once, not twice, maybe like 3, 4, maybe 5 times like he did last week. So Russell Wilson is somebody I really like for tournaments.
Yeah, now, you ready for his ownership?
Yep.
19.5%, the number one owned quarterback.
That's a ton. That is a ton. Wow.
Everybody's on that.
Yeah, that's really high. A lot of higher than I expected, but you can definitely see why. But wow.
Yeah, that's a big number.
So the next one is.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, you're going to have to recognize that when you decide to use him or how much you want to use him.
Yeah, so you could go off of a pivot to the next guy, and that's Dak Prescott. I'm assuming his ownership will be still pretty high, but not as high as 19% here. He is 7,200. You're getting a $100 savings there. And the Cowboys are 4.5 point underdogs, so in theory they could be trailing, leading to more passing attempts here. 43.8 DraftKings points last week, 450 passing yards, and 4 total touchdowns. 3 rushing. If you were an owner of Zeke Elliott last week, it would have been really frustrating because he stole like 2 of Zeke's running touchdowns there, so that kind of sucked for Zeke owners. But, he took those goal line carries, and, he went off last week. So I think he can go off again here, and the highest point total on the slate. Tons of weapons to throw to, and we'll talk about a lot of them on this show here. Cooper, Gallup, Lamb, Zeke, Schultz. All the weapons are there. The upside's there for Dak Prescott. And if you do want to get off of a pivot of the ownership of Russell Wilson, you could go to Dak Prescott here.
Yes. He's the number 3 owned quarterback at 16.3. So lower than Wilson, but not excessively lower.
Yeah, so you could get a little bit of ownership discount on him. But this is really interesting. I'm assuming this guy is going to be the second highest owned quarterback, and that is Kyler Murray at 6,800 versus Detroit. The Cardinals are 5.5 point favorites, and it's a 54.5 point game total, which is really close to the Dallas-Seattle game. So this is a game I really want to attack as well as the Dallas game there. He's averaging 30.2 DraftKings points per game, stackable with somebody I really like this week in DeAndre Hopkins. Rushing yard upside, 21 rushing attempts on the year, solid touchdown upside as well, so he's going to have that rushing yard floor that you like to see in your cash game. So I'm probably going with Kyler Murray in cash, which gives you a nice savings off of Russell Wilson, Dak Prescott, and like I said, I'm assuming he's going to be the second highest owned, but what is he?
Second highest owned, 17% for DraftKings, 15.7. But you're right, the cash-wise, and also, that's a pretty significant, a decent savings as far as your salary is concerned. That helps. And yeah, he's playing well.
Yeah, so those 3 quarterbacks are going to be the most popular. That's almost like 50% ownership combined.
Let's see if it's probably more than, I used to be able to add those 3 up. It's in the 50s. Actually, let's see, -3, -4, -1. Yeah, a little over 50.
That is crazy. Just 3 quarterbacks. All right, so getting into the next play, and that is Cam Newton 6,700, which Cam has been really surprising me this year. I mean, I was expecting him to do good, but not go out there and do this good. 38.6 DraftKings points last week. He has that rushing yard upside. He is basically the goal line back on the team. 26 rushing attempts in the first 2 weeks. Talk about some rushing upside floor there in Cam Newton. The only problem is he's really close to the price of Murray, so my preferred play would be Murray. But if you want to take a pivot off of Murray, maybe Murray doesn't have a great game, maybe Drake gets a couple touchdowns, steals a couple touchdowns, and Cam Newton goes off, you're going to have a decent ownership discount on Cam Newton, and the upside's there against the Raiders here.
Yeah, 8.7% ownership. Not bad at all. That's definitely a lot less. You're going to help you there.
So like half the ownership of Murray there.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, he's really been playing at the goal line. I remember Jen drafted him in one of our leagues. We were together doing a mock in the preseason, and that was one of the reasons she got him. Of course, she got him pretty late. You could get Cam Newton very late, and he is so far been double what I expected inside the 10-yard line.
It has been fantastic. So
Just
this play, I'm
break
really
yourself.
Yeah, exactly. So this next play, I'm really interested to hear the ownership on, and that is Matt Ryan, just because he's been doing absolutely fantastic this year. The Falcons are 3-point favorites, 47-point game total here against Chicago. It's not the best matchup in the world, so I do think this could, lower the ownership. But Matt Ryan has insane volume, 54 passing attempts in Week 1. He's someone who would pass the ball around that 50-time mark plus last year, so the volume is 100% there. Only 36 passing attempts last week, and it was a weird game last week. They got up big against Dallas in the first quarter, and then they kind of let off the gas pedal for some reason, ended up losing the game, which was a very questionable game plan. But Matt Ryan, I think he can throw the ball like 50-plus times. He's going to be low-owned, stackable with guys I like, Ridley, Hurst, Gage, and Julio Jones. We'll talk about if he doesn't play. If Julio Jones plays, it's another weapon there. But Matt Ryan, the volume alone, it's really intriguing at 6,600 and probably low-owned too.
Yeah, I guess Atlanta thought they were in a Super Bowl or something about halftime in that game. Somebody should have woke them up. Matt Ryan, 5.5% owned, so much lower.
Yeah, nobody's going to play him, and people, I don't know what it is, but he's always low owned and he throws the ball like 50 times. That's what you want. So I don't get it.
And their defense has not proven much this year, so they're probably going to be behind, which means they're going to be throwing the ball.
Exactly.
It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, so getting into some punt plays here for quarterback. Of course, those first three up top were fantastic plays, but if you want to go down and punt for a quarterback, Justin Herbert, 5,900 versus the Panthers. Solid, cheap play here with a great matchup, stackable with Keenan Allen. Even Austin Eckler can catch the ball as well. Looked fantastic last week. 311 yards and a touchdown. Also had a rushing touchdown. Just a cheap quarterback play here with a good matchup. What's his ownership here?
0.961%.
Oh my goodness! Wow,
that's pretty good.
Yeah, especially with all the top guys getting the ownership, nobody's going to come down here and play the guy. So it looks like everybody's paying up for quarterback this week.
Yeah, very significantly. But like you said, there's some nice punt ones in here that you can get.
Yeah, so the last quarterback play I do want to talk about, and if Herbert was 0.9, Trubisky is probably a little bit lower than that. The Bears are 3.5-point underdogs with a 47.5-point game total, which is pretty solid there. Just a nice punt quarterback here, and I know what everybody's thinking, Mitchell Trubisky, come on. But no, he has a really good matchup here against this poor Falcons passing defense. The Falcons gave up 450 yards and 43 DraftKings points to Dak Prescott, 322 yards and 35 DraftKings points to Russell Wilson. And, of course, those quarterbacks are much better than Trubisky, but Trubisky, against this defense, I do think he can succeed, maybe get a couple touchdowns. 5,700 is very cheap, going to be very low owned, and he's stackable with somebody I really like and we'll talk about in Allen Robinson.
Yeah, and Trubisky, obviously he's not going to get the sugar for rushing touchdowns like Dak got, but obviously he's got a decent ceiling with Atlanta. 1.7%. He's a little higher owned than Herbert, however you want to pronounce it.
Yeah, and that makes sense. I actually like Trubisky a little bit more than Herbert here. It's just an attack on the Atlanta defense here for me.
Totally agree, and he's been playing fairly well this year. So,
yep, exactly.
That sounds like a good punt play.
Yep. So we're going to get into the running backs here, and we're going to start with Ezekiel Elliott at 8,300 versus Seattle. The Cowboys are 4.5-point underdogs, 55-point game total, a game I really do want to target pretty much everywhere here. Dak did vulture a couple touchdowns from Zeke last week, but he does have touchdown upside in what should be a very high-scoring shootout here. Pass-catching upside as well, 11 targets this year with 9 receptions, very efficient in the passing game, easy 25-plus touch upside, in the highest scoring total on the slate, 8,300. I really like Zeke this week, and I'm sure a lot of people do as well.
Yes, 16.6%, the fifth highest running back owned.
Yeah, I mean, good play here. It's just in this game, I feel like this game is going to be so high owned as a whole. It's crazy.
Yeah, I can't wait to watch it. Hopefully, I watch Red Zone, so.
You're going to see a lot of them in the red zone, I'm assuming.
Yes. Should be good. Yeah, hopefully Dak won't steal Elliott's goal line carries, but he may.
Yeah, that was crazy.
That was nuts. They were desperate. I mean, obviously that end of that game was just crazy. I couldn't believe it. We enjoy those things as fantasy fans. Mm-hmm. You got to feel a little bit for Atlanta.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I remember watching that, watch the Zerline kick that, and I was just like, what is he doing? It went like 5 yards. I'm like, and then I saw as it slowed down that spinning was causing it to go forward, and I thought, oh, he knew how to do that. And sure, the story came out, they practice that every week.
Crazy, yeah, that's crazy.
Got him a win. It's incredible.
That's true. So getting into the next play here, Derrick Henry, 7,800, and I'm really intrigued by this play here versus Minnesota, a defense that's just not very good this year. A buy low spot here on Derrick Henry. Poor game last week, which should lower his ownership. Has 30-plus touch upside as always, touchdown upside in what should be a high-scoring game as well. I'm really intrigued by Henry here. It seems like a lot of people are going to get off of him. A lot of people are going to go to other plays like Zeke Elliott, Chris Carson, all that. But I'm really curious to hear the ownership of Henry because I'm really intrigued to go back to him here. He screwed a lot of people last week, and that just makes me want to play him even more this week.
I totally agree. That's the emotion that you got to get around. You got to recognize people are emotional about things, and you can't expect a guy to give you, over 100% average points every week. They're going to have weeks where they don't make it, and he's at 17.3. He's just above Elliott with 7.3% ownership.
Yeah, so a little bit higher than I'd like, but I can definitely understand why. So people are kind of seeing what I'm seeing, going right back to him. But yeah, Derrick Henry, I really, really do like him this week. I do think he can 100% bounce back from that poor game he had last week. It was weird. Tannehill had 4 or 5 touchdowns. What?
It went the other way.
Yeah, so I think it'll go back to normal this week here.
I agree.
All right, so Austin Eckler, 6,800 versus the Panthers. 4 receptions last week. Herbert is starting, so he should be involved in the passing game more. In week 1 with Taylor playing, I think he got maybe 1 target, which was, not something we want to see from a guy like Eckler who's more than capable of catching the ball, but he does have great pass-catching abilities, very efficient runner as well, very great player all around. You can't ask for a better matchup here against Carolina, 6,800. It just the only thing that I don't like is they gave Kelly 25 touches last week. That's the only thing I don't like. So it looks like they're going to be kind of a two-headed monster down there, but I do think it's a good play. I think there's high upside against one of the worst defenses in the league here.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, we're all very concerned about what's going on there, and we talked about Kelly a lot here on Football Diehards in the preseason. He's done a little more than I thought early on. But like you said, even if they share at a certain percentage, and Eckler's, by the way, his ownership is 4.18, so it's fairly low. If Carolina's going to give up because they have such a weak defense, I think Eckler can still have a pretty darn good game. And people are off of him. People are scared of him, so you're going to get low ownership, for a little over 4%. That's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, those 25 carries for Kelly, definitely did scare some people away, but you never know. Eckler, the matchup's here, and he's going to get some decent opportunities, even with Kelly getting a lot as well.
Yeah, I agree. That's going to be a good one.
So this next play is probably going to be one of the highest owned plays on the slate. I'm probably just going to lock him into my cash games, and that is Miles Sanders, 6,400 against the Cincinnati Bengals. The Eagles are 5-point favorites, 46-point game total. Fantastic matchup against Cincinnati. 23 touches last week, 131 total yards and a touchdown as well. He's just way too cheap here at 6,400. I guess last week we were kind of concerned about, how's he going to be involved in the game coming off that injury? Are they going to, use him a ton, or are they going to use him just a little bit? But they looked like he played almost like every snap, it seems. So Miles Sanders at 6,400. He's going to be used a lot on this Eagles offense. And they're going to have the lead, so they should be running the ball a lot more. I really like Miles Sanders this week in a very favorable matchup.
31% owned, number one running back owned.
That's a ton. Wow. Understandable, though.
Yeah, definitely understandable. That should be exciting to watch that one.
You said he was a number one owned?
Number one running back owned, yep.
Oh, wow, okay.
So
yeah,
a
I
lot
like
of
him a
people
lot.
are expecting him to, continue and do well. Bengals.
Yeah, so Jonathan Taylor at 7,000 versus the New York Jets, and this was someone who was very high owned last week, and he definitely did good last week. The Colts are 10-point favorites here, 43.5 game total. Colts should be ahead most of the game, keeping Taylor in the game script here. 28 total touches last week, 26 rushing attempts and 2 receptions. Favorable matchup here against the Jets. 49ers had 182 rushing yards on 27 attempts against the Jets defense last week. 22 DraftKings points last week versus Minnesota Taylor had, and he had a 1,300 price jump from last week. So, I mean, DraftKings is definitely catching on here, but as they should, Taylor looks like he's going to get those 25-plus touches. The matchup is there. I really like Taylor this week in tournaments, and I wouldn't hate him in cash as well.
23.8% ownership, the third most owned running back. So he's up there, but I agree. It's everything. All the planets are aligning for him to have a great game, no doubt.
Yeah, for sure.
But he's owned. He's definitely owned. 23%.
That is true. I'm curious about the ownership of this guy, and that's Chris Carson of 6,600 versus the Dallas Cowboys in this game that I keep talking about, and everybody's talking about the game that should shoot out here in 55.5 point game total here, averaging 22 DraftKings in the first 2 weeks. Way too cheap here at 6,600. Lots of touchdown upside in what should be a shootout. Lots of touchdown opportunities. Reception upside as well. 9 receptions through 2 games, which is really surprising. And he's caught all 9 targets. He's caught 100% of the ball thrown to him, which is really very efficient there. So Chris Carson at 6,600. I'm assuming like a lot of people are going to go to the Metcalfs, to the Lockett's, play that passing game. But Chris Carson, at 6,600, I think it'd be worth to play him. Maybe play him, and then Dak, and you can play Dak, Cooper, Lamb, and then run it back with Chris Carson on the other side, and what should be a high-scoring game. Maybe get off of that chalk passing game for Seattle. I think that would be a pretty interesting pivot there. But what's the ownership of Carson here?
10.5. So he's like the 7th running back, but still that's not bad.
Yeah, that's a lot lower owned than I thought. I mean, so that's a pretty solid play there in a game that's a 55.5 point game total. I'm assuming he's going to find the end zone at least once.
I think that's a good point. I think he's the non-sexy player, and typically he doesn't catch that many balls. The fact that he's got 9 receptions in the first 2 weeks of the season, I think that's a very positive thing, and he's an excellent kind of a guy to consider, because he's that non-sexy guy that people kind of ignore. So that's a really good idea.
Yeah, that might be a really good tournament option to get off some chalk of the passing game in Seattle.
That's a good idea. I like that.
So this guy should be probably one of the highest owned on the slate, and that is Kenyon Drake. I don't get what they're doing here with the price tag of 6,000 versus the Lions here. He's just way too cheap. Potential buy low spot on Drake here. He hasn't really performed, above the expectations of a lot of people. So that could lower his ownership a little bit, but I still think it's going to be up there. The volume is there for Drake, 15-plus touch upside. Second highest point total on the slate here in this Cardinals and Lions game. Fantastic matchup against the Lions here as well. Touchdown opportunities as well. I really like Drake this week. I don't understand the price of 6,000. I'm definitely going to take advantage of it. Probably plug it in cash, have it in a bunch of tournament lineups as well.
He's the number 2, just behind Sanders at 25%.
Yeah, as expected. Way too cheap.
Yeah, 6,000. Well, I'm not sure why they've got it there. He has underperformed. So there is a concern that with Hopkins there or whatever, maybe they're just the targets aren't going to be or not targets, but touches aren't going to be the same. So this is an important game. We'll see if he does what we expect, and that is have a big game. He should have a big game here.
Yeah, that's true. All right, so getting into some punt plays here for running back, and there's a lot because of all the injuries. We'll touch on a couple here, starting with Dion Lewis versus San Francisco. The Giants are 4-point underdogs here with a 40.5-point game total. Lowest total on the slate here. Barkley is out for the year. Lewis should get a decent amount of opportunities here. Pass catching upside. Not the best matchup. 49ers are PFF's 7th-ranked rushing defense. Solid price for the amount of volume he's likely to get. It's just I don't really know what they're going to do yet with that backfield. So kind of some question marks. I'm assuming this is going to be a very low-owned play because people aren't going to know what's going to happen in this Giants backfield. So I don't know. I think it could be a decent tournament option if he does go out there and get a ton of volume. Maybe he does find the end zone. It's really interesting. It's probably not my favorite punt running back play, but it's just something to look at here.
Yeah, 1.4%, very very low owned. You've got a Freeman who's come in. You've got Gallman he was inactive last week because obviously they didn't expect Barkley to get hurt. So you're not sure who's gonna. I would think Freeman's not going to do a lot because I think he's still kind of learning the offense. My gut is, obviously Dion and then Gallman. You never know. Gallman could get in there and get a lot of touches also, but Dion catches the ball too, so that gives you that added possibility of him having a decent game.
Yeah, very true. And it is hard because we don't know if Freeman's going to be involved. I'm not expecting him to be all that involved. I mean, coming in on like a week's notice. But maybe Lewis is able to go out here and catch some balls. He definitely is able to. So it's a decent option to look at here.
Yeah, Devontae Freeman right now only has a 0.29 ownership. So people aren't expecting that from him.
I mean, it looks like people are just staying away from this backfield, and it could be the right plan here.
Yeah, but that's what we look for in GPP, the things that may not happen, that do happen.
You're right. You're right, at that low ownership.
At the low ownership, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
So Mike Davis, 5,100 versus the Chargers here. Panthers are 7-point underdogs, 44-point game total here. He's going to be filling right into that McCaffrey role, and of course it's almost impossible to replace a guy like McCaffrey, but it just seems like a really good price here at 5,100. Looks like a really good cash game play as well. He's able to catch the ball. Panthers should be, in theory, coming from behind here, causing them to pass the ball more. And Davis did have 8 receptions on 8 targets last week. So it looks like they're going to be kind of, put him in right into that McCaffrey role. He's going to be catching those balls. Maybe he finds the end zone. If he gets like 8 receptions again, I think is a fantastic play.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. He's got a 9% ownership, just below Chris Carson. I worry a little bit because he's away at the Los Angeles Chargers. They played pretty tough against Kansas City last week. But I don't know. I think that's an over-worry. He's going to get a lot of touches. He's getting a lot of targets. That's a lot of catches. He's a decent running back that we just forget about because he's pretty much a journeyman. But he's a decent journeyman. And catching 9 balls last week just tells you that he has some talent. So, I like that play. And I'm a little, he's well owned, I guess. He's somebody people are looking at. But a little over 9% is not that bad.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the Chargers defense is really good. So that is going to take away some ownership. And if they are trailing, maybe they get some garbage time. The pass catching, like you're looking for those guys that can catch the ball, and Mike Davis is more than capable of doing that. So I do like Mike Davis at that price.
Game script, makes a difference. And if you've got a player like a running back who can catch the ball, game script changed to passing, and he's still in play. He's there on every down because he can do running and receiving. So that helps the matchup.
Yeah, so getting into the final running back play here, and that is Jerick McKinnon at 4,900 versus the Giants here. The 49ers are 4-point favorites. Poor game total, though, of 40.5 points, which I think is the worst on the whole slate. But there is no Mostert. There is no Coleman. McKinnon averages 13.7 points per game, and a lot of that was with Mostert and or Coleman playing. So he should get tons of opportunities here in a favorable matchup against the Giants. He does have pass catching upside as well. Extremely cheap, 4,100. I think it's worth a shot in some lineups here.
Yeah, that price tag is so low. He's at 12.5%, like the sixth running back, just above Carson. So yeah, he's the guy. He's the guy this week in the running back for San Francisco. He proved last week he's back and he's healthy. So ownership's somewhat up there. You got to expect that. But $4,900 DraftKings,
yeah,
that's a decent
very
price.
Cheap. Very cheap.
He's going to get touches.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, targets.
So getting into the wide receivers here, and there's so many great plays, but we'll only touch on a decent amount here. DeAndre Hopkins, 7,900 versus the Detroit Lions. The Cardinals are 5.5 point favorites, 54.5 point game total, second highest on the slate. Lions are PFF's 27th ranked defense, and one of the worst defenses versus the pass last year as well. Hopkins has 25 targets through 2 games, which I think is either the first or second best in the whole league. The target upside's there. Fantastic wide receiver. I love the Murray and Hopkins connection this year. It's beautiful. In a game that's projected to score very high, I don't see how Hopkins isn't a great play this week.
Yeah, he's been doing fantastic. It's working perfect for him. 26% owned, the number one owned receiver. I mean, you pretty much have to expect that, unfortunately.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, the price is 7,900. I can argue you can even price them up a little bit more to like the 8,000s.
Yep. So that works out pretty well.
Mm-hmm. So this one we touched on a little bit before the show, and that's Calvin Ridley, 7,200 versus Chicago. So Julio Jones may or may not play. If he does not play, I really, really do like Calvin Ridley this week. He's averaging 34.9 DraftKings points through the first 2 games, which has to be, I'm assuming it's the best in the league. Touchdown threat with 4 touchdowns already in 2 games, which is crazy. 22 targets as well with over 200 receiving yards. But like I said, if Julio does not play, I'm very interested. But even if Julio does play, I still think Ridley's a good play. If Julio does play, it's going to lower his ownership. I just think he's a solid play overall. 7,200 is not bad. Of course, they're going to keep pricing him up each and every week if he keeps performing like this, but 7,200 is not bad as of now. You get a nice pivot off of DeAndre Hopkins, but it really is somebody I'm definitely looking at this week. I played him week 1 and week 2, and it's worked out, and I'm probably going to go back to him here in week 3.
He's 13% owned, just 1, 2, 3, about 7th or 8th. That's not bad. I mean, and I agree with you about Julio. Julio's a bit banged up, obviously. So even if he plays, he may not be 100%. He's not going to be 100%. So it may actually help Ridley for a couple reasons. He may not get as much attention by the defense, and DFS-wise, people may lay off of him a little more, and you got a better chance in GPP. So sounds like a pretty tempting play for Ridley.
Oh yeah, for sure.
That's a 1:00 p.m. game, so you're going to know, half an hour or so before whether Julio's playing or not. I almost want to hope that he does play, so Ridley's more valuable to us. So you'll know that, but before you have to make your decision.
Yeah, that makes tons of sense, and you see that a lot. Like when these star wide receivers play a little banged up, that second guy can really go off.
That's fun.
Oh yeah. So getting into the next play here at 6,500, we have Amari Cooper, which I'm assuming is going to be one of the highest owned receivers on the slate. Number 1 target on the Cowboys here, stackable with Dak Prescott. Most definitely has potential for this game to be a shootout with some touchdown upside as well. Very high volume for Amari Cooper as well. I think it's way too cheap at 6,500 in a game that is going to be very, very high scoring. He's going to have a ton of opportunities, but the ownership could be a little worry. But I do think he's a fantastic play this week.
13% owned. Actually, his teammate, CeeDee Lamb, is slightly ahead of him in ownership. And they're both about 5th and 6th on the list of ownership of wide receivers. So
that makes sense, and we'll touch on him right now. CeeDee Lamb, 5,400, and I can see why people are playing a little bit more of him because you're getting a decent savings off of Amari Cooper, and Lamb's been fantastic himself. The Cowboys are 4.5 underdogs, so they should be trailing in theory in this game, leading to more passing attempts. 15 targets through the first 2 games this season, averaging 15.7 DraftKings points as well. And he has an extremely favorable matchup against Seattle, who has given up 847 passing yards in the first 2 weeks, which is a ton. And I love the price here for Lamb in what should be a very high-scoring game.
Yep, 13.4% owned, just above his teammate Cooper. I didn't quite expect this rookie to come in and play that well early. Of course, they played against Atlanta, a poor defense. They were behind. They had to throw. It's a 3-headed monster at wide receiver. But he's proven himself. And a lot of people are, pushing back Gallup a little bit in his expectations that we have for him. So people are leaning on Lamb. I can see that obviously people have decided they're ready to put their money down on him.
Oh, yeah, for sure. All right, so getting into the next play here. And we're targeting the other side of this game now. We're going to go to DK Metcalf. Nice touchdown threat in a game I really do want to target. Great matchup here against the Dallas passing defense, averaging 19 DraftKings points per game with 2 touchdowns on the year. Would not be surprised if he found the end zone again this week. And he's just way too cheap here at 6,500 in this game that, is going to score high. He's going to get plenty of touchdown opportunities. I think Metcalf's a really good play here at 6,500.
Yeah, 15% owned. He's below Hopkins. He's number 2, but obviously there's a big drop between Hopkins and then the group that we've been talking about. So,
big drop, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, huge drop.
So getting into the next play, which is his teammate, Tyler Lockett, way too cheap here as well at 6,400. Has touchdown upside as well, stackable with Russell Wilson. Lockett has caught 15 balls on 16 targets, averaging 18.5 DraftKings points through the first 2 games. Very, very efficient. Only dropping one of those balls on 16 targets there.
And he's just below Metcalf, 14.1, the third most owned wide receiver. So definitely a lot of Cowboys and a lot of Seahawks players are being owned.
Yeah, it's really tough for me to. It's really tough for me to decipher who I'm going to have more of, Lockett or do I want more of Metcalf. Metcalf seems like he's the more kind of a touchdown threat, even though Lockett can score. But Lockett seems like he's going to get more of those targets, more opportunities. But I don't know. Metcalf seems more of that big play guy. So it's really tough to see who's going to do better this week.
Yeah. I mean, Metcalf has really come on in his second year. He played well his rookie season. Lockett's got the experience, probably more chemistry with Russell Wilson, but they're neck and neck. So you defined it quite well. So it's difficult to figure it out. And their salaries are almost the same, and their ownership is almost the same. So the benefit between one or the other doesn't push you as far as those numbers are concerned too much.
Yeah. So, Allen Robinson, 6,200 versus Atlanta. The Bears are 3.5-point underdogs. Really solid game total of 48 points. Volume is there with 18 targets through the first 2 games. He just can't get anything going. But the matchup here against Atlanta is extremely favorable. What more can you ask to play against this Atlanta passing defense? He should have lower ownership due to doing pretty much nothing through the first 2 weeks, but I'm not counting him out just yet. Against Atlanta, I'm going to give him one more week. This is a fantastic matchup and what should be a high-scoring game here. So give me Allen Robinson at 6,200, hopefully lower ownership.
5.9%. He's way down there. I think it's an interesting. I mean, if you can't start Allen Robinson now, I guess you've just kind of given up on him, and we're close to giving up on him. But that's how things flow. That's a good position right now. The salary's low, like you said. The ownership's low. Good matchup. This is an opportunity to play this guy in GPP.
Yeah, and that's how you win those big tournaments. The buy low spots. A guy has a bad week 1, week 2, and of course people give up on him. But he's still there, and the matchups here, and 5% really surprises me.
Yeah, that's almost 6, 5.9. It's interesting. Just to take a reflection here. Josh Allen for the quarterback for Buffalo, they played 2 poor teams. He dominated, and we're all, this guy's incredible and stuff. Well, let's see. And the opposites are here. Is you've had you've had some tough games at the beginning. You've won some games, but you haven't had good fantasy value. So he's got an opportunity to take it to the next level here. He meaning
for sure.
Allen Robinson.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see if he can get it done. I'm assuming he can, but if he can't, I'll be very concerned for him going forward.
Yes.
All right, so this is an interesting play here. Kenny Golladay, 6,200 versus Arizona. So he is returning from an injury, and he is expected to play, but, kind of some question marks. Like we had question marks with Miles Sanders returning from an injury. This could be a little bit more worrisome here with Golladay, who has not played yet. I don't know. It's 6,200 is decent. The matchup's very decent. Could be a potential shootout here in the second highest total on the slate. I think it's another buy low spot and what should be a very low-owned play here. I don't think anybody's going to go to Golladay much. I mean, maybe they do. Maybe they see the matchup. Maybe they know that Golladay has a ton of upside. If he's really coming in here like healthy, I think he's a really good play. It's just a question mark. So I'm not totally sure what to do, but I think I'll have some Golladay because I do think they'll be kind of low-owned here.
Well, he's 6.3% owned, which is fairly low. It's an afternoon game. He's expected to play. So that's the worry. A lot of times you want to see a guy come back and get one game in with him so you know where he's coming from. But that doesn't win you GPP tournaments.
Yep.
It's looking forward and being able to say, I think he's ready, or even if he's 80, 90%, he's still going to have a big game. So fairly low ownership at this point, and we're not going to know anything because it's an afternoon. Anything more than we know now as far as his health, it's because it's an afternoon game.
Yeah, for sure. It's a risk, but it's kind of one of those high risk, high reward plays here.
Yes, totally.
So getting into the next play, and that is Terry McLaurin at 5,900 versus Cleveland. Washington, 8-point underdogs to Cleveland here, so in theory should be trailing a lot of this game, leading to more passing attempts, maybe some potential garbage time upside as well. And he had himself a week last week, 125 yards and a touchdown on 10 targets. Nice upside, very cheap. I'm really high on McLaurin. I know he doesn't have the most talented quarterback in the world throwing to him, but he's a very talented guy himself, and this is a really good matchup against Cleveland in a game they should be trailing, so leading to more passing attempts, leading to more receptions for McLaurin. And I really like the price here, and I like the upside as well.
Yeah, 5% owned, which is pretty darn good considering he had, was it 10 catches or 10 targets last week?
I don't know.
Anyway,
maybe it was a lot of.
He had a good week last week, and ownership's fairly 5% is not bad at all.
Oh yeah, for sure. All right, so getting into the next play here. Deontay Johnson, someone who's been really surprising me, and I'm sure a lot of people this year, versus the Houston Texans. Steelers are 4-point favorites, 45-point game total. He's way too cheap here. I'm surprised they have not bumped up his price yet. I'm assuming they will soon because he's been looking fantastic. He's averaging 17 DraftKings points per week so far. Great matchup here against the poor Houston defense. 23 targets through the first 2 weeks, which is like top 5 in the league here, and we're getting him at 5,400. So Big Ben really likes this guy. So I don't know. I think it's a good play. I think it's a good price. Nice tournament play here.
What is he doing at $5,400 at DraftKings?
I don't know.
His ownership's a little over 8%. That's not bad. That's not bad. Now I don't know. It's not a bad matchup. He's a good. He's playing well. He's playing well. In fact, I don't know how the heck does Pittsburgh get all these receivers. Claypool, who is this guy? I mean, he's. How do you play him right now? I mean, obviously, if we could get JJ to get hurt or somebody to get hurt, Claypool would be a great play because he's just doing so much with such little targets. That first catch he made in week 1 was incredible. He took that sideline catch last week and ran it for a touchdown. I don't know what you do with him, but obviously Deontay is really, he's almost the number 1 receiver, really de facto receiver there. Juju is great, but it looks like Deontay's getting more targets.
Yeah, so got to take advantage of him as we can now at 5,400. I don't expect that price to stay there in the upcoming week.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I'm going to ask you, I think they ruled out Brown, right? And Antonio Brown, right?
Yeah, A.B. Brown is out. He is out. So we know where we're at there.
So Corey Davis versus Minnesota. Titans are 2-point favorites, 47-point game total. And no Brown this week, so 12.6 points last week. There was no Brown last week as well. I was expecting Davis to do a little bit better, but he was able to score there. Very solid matchup against Minnesota. Minnesota is like one of the worst passing defenses in the league. Minnesota has given up 600 passing yards through the first 2 games, which is the 5th most. So Corey Davis is somebody I'm really looking at this week at 5,200.
He's just below Galladay at 6.1% ownership. So, yeah, it's fairly low. Especially, AB's been out for a couple of days now. I don't know if it was completely official, but we pretty much knew. So there may be a slight bump on Corey today before all the bets are in, or all the lineups are in. But, yeah, not bad, 6% for, he's the number 1 receiver there.
Yeah. And then this final pump play I want to talk about for wide receiver, and that is Adam Humphries at 3,900 versus Minnesota as well. The Titans are 2-point favorites, 48.5-point game total, which is a fairly high total here. Nice pump play here at wide receiver. Fantastic matchup against this Minnesota passing defense. No Brown this week, so he should get more targets. He does have 13 targets through the first 2 weeks with 11 receptions. Very, very efficient there, and just way too cheap. And you're going to get that volume there at 3,900. I think it's a good play.
Yeah, with AB out, this guy's a great play. 4.39% owned, so that's nice and low salary. You don't have AB in the game, so he's an excellent play, right? You got to get him in, but if you're going to play him, this is a good time to play him because AB's not going to be out much longer.
Yep, very true. All right, and then finally we're going to touch on some tight ends here, and we're going to start with Dalton Schultz at 4,500 versus Seattle. Highest total on the slate with a 55.5-point game total. Stackable with Dak. 88 yards and a touchdown last week. Really surprised me last week. 10 targets last week. Solid tight end in a game I do want to target here. And in Schultz at 4,500.
Yep, 2.6% owned. So, that's pretty low.
Yeah.
Of course, in tight ends, you're only starting 1 tight end, so maybe that's why they're a little lower. Mm-hmm. I like that. I'm just a little worried. We've got to factor in the fact they were playing Atlanta. They were behind.
Very true.
Seattle has given up things, so are we a little overexcited about them? But 2.6% in the salary, it's very attractive.
Oh, yeah. So this next play is something that I played last week, and it definitely worked out, and that's Jordan Reed. He's now 4,000 versus the Giants. The 49ers are 4.5-point favorites with a 41-point game total. Kittle is out, I believe. Nice pump play here at 4,000. Very talented player. Just seems to be injury-prone. But when he's playing, he's really solid. 8 targets last week, 7 receptions with 50 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Went off last week at a very cheap price. So going right back here again at no Kittle. He's going right into that Kittle role, and a very, very good matchup here against the Giants.
Yep, 4% owned now. It was fun last week talking about him. Mm-hmm. Didn't expect. I mean, you can't expect a guy to do as well as you did. 2 touchdowns, but that was just fun. That's just a great DFS play and an in-season play too last week. Let's hope he can muster up a touchdown and some yards this week. He's healthy. The guy's always been a great player. He's had health problems. He's had, concussion issues. And so, I think this is a great play for him. It's kind of funny going back to him. I feel a little sometimes like we're chasing points, but we're not really chasing points. It's a good opportunity. So, I remember what his dollar figure was last week, but 4,000 is still pretty damn good.
Oh, yeah, for sure. All right, and then finally, the last tight end I do want to touch on is Logan Thomas at 3,700. Way too cheap here versus Cleveland, Washington. 7-point underdogs with a 44-point game total. Should be coming from behind in theory. Maybe some possible garbage time upside. Fantastic volume for his price at 3,700. 17 targets through 2 games, 9 last week, and a very favorable matchup here against Cleveland, who is one of the worst against tight end. I think they're dead last in the tight end so far this year. I think they're close to dead last in the tight end last year. They can't cover the tight end, and Logan Thomas is pretty solid here. And at 3,700, I'm going to put him in cash. He's going to have some decent volume for that price, and you can't really ask for a better matchup here for him. Yeah,
he's the number 1 targeted tight end owned this owned
Mhm.
tight end this week at 16.7%. So people are agreeing with you on
16%.
that.
Wow.
16.7. He's way up there. He's just all of a sudden
Yeah.
he's the guy. $3,700 is a pretty cheap price for somebody
Mhm.
who's done as well as he's done. Now, I'm going to go put my Drew Sample in again. I know I talked about him last Sunday, even though he had played the Thursday game because he had 9 targets and 7 catches. Now,
Mhm.
Burrow's threw 61 passes. He's not going to be throwing 61 passes every week last week. So, but I still think he's a good punt play. He's at 3,500. He's cheaper than Logan Thomas, and he's owned like 3.3%. So he's still a guy I think I'd like to consider.
Yeah, for sure. And Philadelphia is not all that great at covering the tight end as well. They're 30th right now so far this year, and they weren't so great last year. So I don't know. It's kind of weird. Like Burrow is throwing the ball a ton. Is he going to keep that up? I don't know. But yeah, I definitely see what you're saying with Sample there.
Well, I think Philadelphia's already given up 4 touchdowns to tight ends already. Now, it's all about matchups and things, but he's an interesting guy to consider. He's definitely a punt play of good value price wise, and not known. He was a 2nd-round draft pick in 2019 last year, so we don't know anything about the guy. I mean, it's a risky play. Obviously, he'd be owned a lot more if it wasn't a risky play.
Yeah.
That's a lot of targets for a guy who was doing nothing before, but he wasn't the starting tight end, and the starting tight end was down, so got an opportunity.
Yeah, for sure. And then we can touch on defense just a little bit. We'll start with the Colts up top at 4,100 versus the Jets. And, if you do want to go up and pay for a defense, I think the Colts is a great option. I mean, the Jets are turning the ball over a ton. The Jets look, awful this year. So I think the Colts at 4,100 is pretty safe this week.
Yeah, the Colts, just a little under 9%. They're the 3rd most owned defense. Pittsburgh, the Chargers, and the Colts are the top 3.
Yeah, the Steelers is another defense I do want to talk about at 4,000. They're looking absolutely amazing this year.
Yeah.
And then against Houston, that they really can't get anything going. And then other than that, that's if I was to pay up for a defense. Other than that, I usually just like the punt defense. I punted the Jets defense last week. I think they got like 6 points. I mean, it works out. They're 2,000. That's like 3x. So really just maybe the Texans, you can punt at 2,100, but so you can go up and get those other guys in your lineup. But if I was to pay up for a defense, it would probably be the Colts. Is something I really like this week.
Cool. That sounds good.
Yeah.
I'm putting my notes in here for my lineups later.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that's great. I love these plays. It's going to be fun this week. Hopefully we'll know a little more about the injuries of Julio Jones one way or the other. We're not going to. Devontae Adams doesn't matter. He's a Sunday night. He probably won't play, but we won't know, obviously. And I guess I don't play those plays anyway. So
Yeah.
fantastic. And do remember, if you want to, we got a ton of stuff on the website as far as everything, including DFS. We got these ownership percentages. If you want to subscribe, you can go to the description page and use the discount code of Diehards and get 15% off. So anything else, Brady, you got for us?
No, just really excited. Should be another fun week of NFL. Just hopefully there's not as much injuries as last week. Like, that was crazy. There was guys, getting out of the game left and right. Hopefully that doesn't happen this week, and hopefully we can make some money.
Yeah, I was watching on Red Zone and was watching Barkley, and he had a play there where he kind of jammed his elbow, and I was like, oh my gosh, it could be serious. And he comes right back in. I'm thinking, oh, that's great. I don't really have Barkley. I just hate seeing guys hurt.
Yeah.
And the next play, I think it was the next play, he's out for the season. It's just
Really unfortunate there.
yeah, part of the game that's not fun, as everybody, including us fans and fantasy players. Well, fantastic. Good luck in week 3.
Yep. Good luck to you as well. Hopefully it's a great week 3 for us.
Fantastic. Appreciate it. We'll talk on Wednesday with Kyle at 8 o'clock Eastern Time.